Well, welcome everybody. I'm Jose Carlos. I collaborate in Reforestamos Mexico. One of our actions is to promote forest entrepreneurship and innovation in forestry education. We work across Latin America. Today, I will moderate the session expanding the scope of forest education, fostering a more integrated and holistic approach. Thank you to FAO for inviting us to organize this session, and thank you for your attendance. Today, we are going to discuss about the importance of having a forest education that responds to current challenges. So please, Eleazar, ¿puedes la presentación, por favor? Could you share the presentation, please? L. Okay, 1 second. No. Eleazar? Okay.
Jose Carlos, who are you hoping to share the screen at the moment?
Oye, en un segundo. Lo que pasa es que se me movió, pero ya lo tengo.
Yeah, no, don't worry, Khalil. Yeah, he will share. Yeah, sorry. Logistical problems. Thank you. ¿Listo? L.
Un segundito, ya casi.
Okay. So first, we invite you to share some details about yourself. Please, next slide, Eleazar, please. La siguiente diapositiva. Please go to next. Please go to la siguiente diapositiva, Eleazar. Yeah. Please go to mentimeter.com. If possible, use your cell phones. In the chat, you can also have the link to the activity. Please write the code that you can see on the screen. The code is this. Enter the code 57632617. And if you please answer the questions that we are going to share. So please, in the Mentimeter. Voy a compartir pantalla, Eleazar, ¿eh? No, sabes que no. No. The first question, what is your country? Please tell us where are you from. In these online events, we don't have enough time to connect, but we want to have at least an idea about who is in the session. Please, so where are you from? What is your country? Eleazar, ¿podrías compartir las respuestas? Sí, ¿verdad? And please do it in the Mentimeter. Uday. ¿Qué tal? Bueno, lo voy a hacer como que tengo que hablar en español con Eleazar. Por favor, en el chat encontrarán la liga a Mentimeter y ahí hay unas preguntas que nos invitamos a contestar. Ahorita estamos en la sesión 1.5, Expanding the Scope of Forest Education, para las personas que se están uniendo. Eleazar, ¿podrías compartir las respuestas, por favor? Perfecto. Muchas gracias. Estamos viendo las respuestas. Hay gente de Tailandia, de Argentina, de Nicaragua, el país que salga más es el país que tenemos más presencia. Hay mucha gente de México. Sí, por favor, nada más compártenos ahí brevemente. Canadá, Mongolia. Interesante tener la oportunidad de compartir con ustedes las experiencias. La siguiente pregunta, por favor, Eleazar. La siguiente pregunta es, ¿cuáles son las temáticas que consideran es necesario incluir en la educación forestal? ¿Cuáles son esos temas que ustedes creen que se deben de incluir en la educación forestal? Y si puedo ver las respuestas, L, que va pegando la gente.
Se supone que ya la debes de ver.
Bueno, entonces todavía no contestan. ¿Le puedes actualizar? Comunidades originarias, climate change, cambio climático, ¿ok? Ok, restauración de paisajes, cómo acceder a fondos, responsabilidad, género, comunidades originarias, ok, acerca de animales, de géneros, muy interesante conocer. Y finalmente, la siguiente pregunta, L, ¿la podrías pegar, por favor? ¿Qué significa una educación forestal, holística e integrada? Kalichi, how can I help you? I know I see you have your hand raised, so please tell me if you need some help. Kalichi. Ok, cuando escuchas qué significa una educación forestal integrada y holística, ¿qué puedes pensar? Ok, enseñar a los estudiantes a amar la profesión, más que simplemente enseñar. Muchas gracias. Gobernanza. Ok, incorporar todos los campos de la forestería, temas ambientales, económicos y sociales, que responda a retos actuales. Para nosotros es importante escuchar sus respuestas porque vamos a compartirlas posteriormente. Y tell me, Kalishi, what you need, please. Kalishi, Elania. Ok, más participación, conservación de recursos naturales. Bueno, con todo esto presente, vamos a continuar con nuestra sesión del día de hoy, donde les vamos a compartir experiencias de gente que ha llevado a lo forestal más allá de lo forestal. Y en este día vamos a escuchar a varias personas que precisamente están ampliando lo que es la educación forestal. Pero primero le pido a Sandra Rodríguez, ¿estás aquí, verdad, Sandra?
Sí.
Sandra Rodríguez nos va a hacer una presentación acerca de por qué es importante hablar acerca de ampliar la visión de la educación forestal y hacerla más holística e integrada. Entonces, Sandra, por favor, ¿puedes presentar?
No, you have my presentation.
Ok. Dame un segundo.
Great.
Un segundo nada más. Y ahorita... Listo, Sandra. Lo puedes hacer en inglés, español, como te sientas más cómoda. Tenemos los traductores. Muchas gracias.
Great. Thank you, Jose Carlos, for inviting me to start this very important session. Thank you, everyone, for your participation. Probably you were in the previous session where I was moderating. And I would like to welcome my colleagues who are going to be guest speakers. And of course, I want to thank again you for being able to take some minutes to share with us your experiences. As Jose Carlos mentioned, I was invited to this session to provide some insights of why it's important to expand forest education. Next, please. I would like to start with the definition of sustainable development that I wrote here, and it's quite old definition. This definition has two parts that are missing, according to my knowledge. It does not recognize the constraints is imposed by nature to meet current and future needs. And therefore, it's also difficult to assess, next, what is to be sustained? That is a very important question. Next. Of course, there are myriad of things to be sustained, such as land and water ecosystem that support communities. The quality of education has to be sustained, clean water, and among others. In this regard, the Agenda 2030 reconciles the definition of sustainable development and provides a framework of the most present things that need to be addressed to have a sustainable development that accounts for the constraints of nature. In summary, what is to be sustained is the well-being of human individuals, their communities, and their environments. However, achieving these 17 goals could impact forests and forest-related livelihoods in such a way that can either enhance or undermine the contribution of forests to climate and development. Next. Therefore, there is a need to widely disseminate the knowledge about the contribution of forests to human well-being. Since such a contribution is vast, the scope of forest education should need to be holistic. Next. Let's take the examples of the, just give me a second. Oh gosh. Just give me a second.
Yep.
I'm having trouble with my lab here, but just give me 1 minute. I will fix it really quick. So we have some of the targets of the sustainable development goal number 4. And those are related, for example, to insurance equal access for all women and men to affordable and quality technical, vocational, and tertiary education. There is also a call to increase the number of youth and adults who have relevant skills. One of the targets also is related to the knowledge and skills needed to promote sustainable development. I just highlighted what I think it is important to take from them. And also the substantial increase the supply of qualified teachers. However, we might ask, what are those relevant skills that forest students need to have? What is that knowledge and skills needed to promote sustainable development? Who is going to foster scholarships for forest students? Who is going to train teachers of primary and secondary level about forest subjects? Those are questions that we need to ask to be able to expand forest education through all levels. Fortunately, we have some answers for some of those questions. Previous studies and the global survey and regional virtual consultations provide some information that helps to identify those competences and program contents that are relevant to promote sustainable development and to prepare future professionals in relation to forest, to prepare future professionals. In relation to forest education, we were able to identify topics that are not covered in all levels of education and that participants of the survey and virtual consultation consider important to meet societal demands and achieve sustainable development goals. Next. Just a brief summary of what has been discussed this whole day. Some skills that need to be developed at the primary and secondary are to learn more about ecosystem services. Those are the competences. To be more in contact with the forest, to learn more about indigenous knowledge and cultural and spiritual values of forest. And at the technical, it's still a big challenge because there are more subjects that need to be covered, such as economics, policy and legislation, leadership, entrepreneurship, forest extension, ethics, gender and race issues. Next. And for the university level, although we have covered some of the major forestry content, there is still some gaps that need to be covered, like forest soils, more emphasis in forest soils, forest genetics, non-timber forest products, urban forest, fire management, policy and legislation, restoration, forest and human health, forest and gender and ethnicity. We have been discussed this all morning, as I said. Next. We clearly see that social, economics, and ecological contents are yet to be included in the programs, in particular the socioeconomics. Therefore, forest education not only needs to be included at the basic level of education, primary and secondary, but also needs to integrate the system approach to embrace the principles of holism that suggests that all systems are necessarily interdependent, and thus conceptual isolation do not do justice to the richness of forest ecosystems. Okay. Or forest ecosystem and its contribution to human well-being. Therefore, we might start to make our programs transdisciplinary. I know there is a lot of discussion about the terms transdisciplinary, interdisciplinary, multidisciplinary, supradisciplinary, but we want to keep it simple, and I just provide the definition of transdisciplinary. Perhaps this is a topic that we need to do more research and see how to integrate those concepts into forest education. Next. Please. Building the new forest programs that address social demands has profound implications for both the curriculum and pedagogy. The curriculum, we can summarize it as the what is taught and learned, and the pedagogy, how learning takes place. Next, please. To understand that, of course, we will require extra efforts. We will need to consider policies at the national level, institutional design, research and support, use information technology, hiring and career advancement, student recruitment and degree requirements, that's very important, and administrative structures. We have a challenge here because, as I said, we are not doing justice to the riches of forestry and all its benefits and services that provides to the well-being. So that's why we need to expand, and it is important to expand and think outside our traditional methods of teaching in our programs, and to bring forest education to the other levels of education, primary, secondary, be more strong in non-formal education, and of course review our formal education in the forestry programs. This is all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Muchas gracias, Sandra, por compartirnos esta información. Nada más déjenme dejar de compartir. Muchas gracias por darnos el marco de por qué es importante hablar acerca de tener una educación forestal más integrada, más holística y con una nueva visión. Como ustedes saben, como lo vieron en la mañana, Sandra Rodríguez fue la consultora encargada de hacer el estudio de la educación forestal para Latinoamérica. Entonces, ella hizo las entrevistas y, bueno, volver a recordarles que tuvimos una muy alta participación y también en nuestro foro de consulta regional. Por eso nos dimos a la tarea de hacer esta sesión y los invitamos a escuchar las experiencias. Recuerden que en la parte de interpretación, abajo de la pantalla, hay un globito que parece un mundo. En la interpretación ustedes pueden verlo en español, inglés o francés. Perfecto. Y ahora sí vamos a continuar con las presentaciones de 3 experiencias que nos muestran que hay que llevar la educación forestal hacia otros niveles y hacia otros sectores. Y Es muy importante mencionar que cuando hablamos de educación forestal, no solamente hablamos de la educación que se refiere a la universitaria, se refiere también a los niveles básicos y al nivel secundaria, pero en general queremos hablar de una educación forestal más completa. Saludos a todos los que van llegando a la sesión, Ignacio y a todos los demás que nos están acompañando. Y ahorita invito a Lupita Fábregas y a Claudia Díaz de 4H para que nos compartan su presentación. Por favor.
Disculpa, José Carlos,
Claro
¿me
que
puedes
sí.
bloquear la cámara? Porque no puedo hacerlo, tuve problemas técnicos.
Ok, déjame revisar. Gracias, Sandra. Adelante, Claudia, Lupita, en inglés. La presentación puede ser en español de las láminas y en inglés pueden hablar. Muchas gracias.
Buenos días a todos. Mi nombre es Lupita Fábregas y soy la responsable del programa 4H en el estado de Missouri, que es la parte de medio de Estados Unidos. Pero tengo el privilegio de trabajar muy cerca de Claudia Díaz, que es una persona verdaderamente sensacional, and she is working in the University of California, where I used to work, and I also know Sandra Rodriguez because we did our PhD in the same university. So this is a big family. Thank you very much for coming today. We are going to speak in English, and our slides are in Spanish, trying to help everybody to understand better what 4-H is about. So my first thing that I want to say is I want you to write in the chat. When do you think that education is the education for the people, for the kids, for the majority of our population should start related to forestry? And I'm gonna keep the chat going, and Claudia is gonna do the presentation, so that way we can do a little interaction. So welcome to our presentation, and we are gonna call you to for some action after our presentation, because we want you to open 4-H clubs in your community and start really embracing the education of the young people around forestry. So I'm gonna let Claudia go, and if you have any questions, I'm gonna be checking the chat. Thank you, Claudia.
Thank you, Lupita. Thank you, Carlos. And thank you, everyone, for joining us here today. Please, I hope you can catch up with me. I'm a fast talker, whether it's in English and Spanish. But please feel free, like Lupita, as she said, is going to be monitoring the chat. And so if you need me to repeat anything, or you have a particular question, go ahead and enter it there. We really want to make this interactive. So what you're seeing in this opening slide is that education is really the only way to really protect our forests. Lupita and I are privileged to work for an organization called 4-H, which stands for Head, Heart, Hands, and Health. In the US, these organizations serve close to 6.5 million people. And we have like around 90, almost 100,000 clubs all across the country. The good news for you will say, what does this matter to 4-H, is that 4-H is really all around the world, and we cover topics from healthy living, science, engineering, technology, like citizenship, leadership. And you may be thinking, how does that relate to forest? Well, the reality is that we all over the world face the same challenges that you do as it comes to forestry. 4-H was founded in the US more than 100 years ago with the main goal to help youth reach their highest potential. The government found out that the rural areas youth were not doing so well. And so they founded this program to really be able to take university research to the people that needed it the most. So after 100 years, we're still here, growing and really facing the challenges that the world has, not alone, but with the kids, which we know they are creating our next generation. So how do we work in 4-H? In 4-H, we work with groups of youth and adults, and all these adults are usually volunteers. There are non-paid people that have interest in helping their community face different challenges, such as forest education. So in communities, we establish clubs, and these clubs work in a project-based setting. What does this mean? That as you can see, little kids in our communities might be wondering about where they're interested, where is gonna be their future careers, how they might have fun doing. And what we do is we train the adults in that community to really be able to use these kids as sparks so they can really grow to become whatever the best version of themselves might be. unfortunately, you know, working with volunteers has their own challenges, particularly when it comes to science-based education and forestry. You know, we really are trying to deliver like a lot of content, and then we not necessarily have the tools to do that. And so when we're looking at our volunteers, we're looking for certain type of people, like a particular profile that may not be a forest expert, you know, may not have like a high school diploma, not even like a bachelor's diploma or a master's degree. But our job in 4-H is to empower the adults in the communities to deliver high quality education. And we have been able to do that successfully with forestry. So how do we start? The first thing that we do is we look for adults that have interest in helping young people, right? We really know that when education comes from the heart, has a positive result in the youth. So we need people that have the time and willingness to and energy to work with our youngsters, and also that they can be willing to be trained. You know, I mean, as adults, not all of us has like this love for learning, you know, the lifelong learning that we really want to spark in the youth. And so when we look for our volunteers, we want to entice that. We want to make sure that they are willing to be trained and to like pick up everything that we give them to them, so we can assure that the youth is delivering or is receiving like high quality programming, right? Also, we look for adults that have ability to do some decision making, that they know how to lead teams. And when communities like doesn't have a high leadership IQ, you know, for lack of a better word, we really train them and provide opportunities for them to grow in leadership, right? And as we do that, we really try to share what our mission as 4-H as an organization, what are our values, and what policies, because 4-H is run through our universities, right? So we need to make sure that everything that we're doing is research-based, that we're following policies and procedures that keep the youth safe and also the adults safe. And so the one thing that we don't have when we come to 4-H is that we not always know our local community or what are their resources. So when we look for volunteers in the communities, we really make sure that they have some knowledge of who are the kids in their communities and what resources do they have access for. This is where the magic happens. We start with the kids and what are their interests, and then we use this organization on project base so they can learn one thing at a time that they are interested. And oftentimes kids are interested in many different projects. So when we have many projects together, we form the clubs, right? And those clubs might happen in a setting which might be a city or even a state. So as you were saying, like I work in the University of California in two of the urban areas in Southern California, and Lupita runs the whole state of Missouri, right? And so that's why we really believe that this is the magic, because we're able to find like volunteers or parents that are involved in their kids' education, and we work with their kids and with us as an organization. Really, we're able to create really positive impacts in the youth. And how does this all boil down? You know, you may have like a local town that, you know, may have a forest, may need like some ecosystem services, and the youth just doesn't know when to help. You know, they may hear about the stuff happening in the forest in the news, but they just don't know what happens. They may not be able to identify. So in these projects at the local level, we really give them the tools so they can learn about their local forest, you know, things that happen, you know, like how leaves grow, you know, how different services happen over there. But then we provide an opportunity to grow in their knowledge. And so this is, you know, kind of like the top level of forest education. For many of you in the US may know that the Super Bowl is like, you know, one of the most competitive events around the world as it relates to football, right? But think about the Super Bowl like the Tour de France, you know, for biking, you know, or Ironman events. And so for us, we do create a national search forestry invitation, and it's only by qualification. Any person in a community that has like, you know, 5 youth can join. And so they work with our local staff so they can learn how to identify leaves, you know, what are some of the things that happens. And then we have this global competition. So youth is excited, you know, to really compete and showcase. They study throughout the year. They have access to trained teachers. And so through their life, they are able to really showcase and expand their love of learning around different issues. You know, we run this in a national level once a year. We rotate whoever is hosting once a year. And as you were saying, like kind of our 2019 last time that we had this event, Arkansas was one of the states that won. One of the things that this is interesting because we may have a state or regions, for example, in California, that all our southern area that passes to Arizona and southern New Mexico are desertic areas, right? So one of the things that has been my challenges is teaching kids about trees when I live in a region that really has a lack of them, or we can only have urban forests, right? All our kids that live in our low and our high deserts may have never seen a forest before, right? And so like the enticements about going to national competition and traveling where they actually can see a forest and experience a forest have been one of the things that have been more rewarding for us as it relates to forest education. And so you might be thinking like, Claudia, if you're not a forest expert or if you work with community people, how do you empower them, right? The reality is that we've been able to identify curriculum for all ages, right? And so here in the screen, you have some of my favorites. One of them comes from our National Forest Association, and that's just like a good activity guide, that it's as the name said, it follows the path. It's just like como sigue el sendero, and that's just trying to guide you through a nature hike, and it's just say like, this is the stuff that you can be looking for. This is how you do it in a safe manner. This is how you invite the parents. The one to the right is one of the curriculums that I've been using the most for years, because it's a compilation that the National Forest Foundation in the US put together and has been like not only made by like highly rewarded scientists, but they also be working with a lot of educators that have real classroom experience to adapt the science content to a way that youth can understand it. And so this is a long life partnership that the American Forest Institute had for us, right? And so like through the years, we have been feeding this curriculum, which is called Project Learning 3. And then little by little, we have been able to just add lessons and really make a hands-on learning experience. And so when I talk to educators, sometimes you come with these big binders that have a lot of like lesson plans about, to teach about kids a particular content. And, we just walk them through this. We host trainings in our office, and then we always teach them this context that is really about like, when you can bring kids to the forest, let's bring them. But if you cannot bring the kids to the forest, let's bring the forest to the classrooms, right? Or to the backyards. And
Claudia,
I think particularly like,
Claudia, sorry. The translation service is telling me that please, if you could speak slow, please, because they need to follow you, please. Thank you so much.
No, that's good. No worries.
Very slow. Thank you.
I'm glad you're telling me. I'll slow down a little bit. And so I'm just gonna rewind a little bit. I was sharing with you guys about like kind of some resources that we use for forest education in 4-H. So this is two of the main curriculums that we have been using during the past years. And the reason that we have chosen this is because they are like easy access. The one to the right is like a family-oriented curriculum when they teach youth how to do safely a nature house, how they can look for signs in the forest about the health of the trees, their age, how to identify the seasons, of what to expect with the seasons changing. The one in the right is a compilation of more than 240 activities. And these are like activities that were designed by scientists in partnership with educators, which means that they are really teaching like kind of the concepts that someone will receive in a bachelor's degree, but they do it like a kindergarten, first, second, third grade, all the way to 8th grade, right? All this curriculum that we use is hands-on, and it's based on the concept that sometimes you are not able to take kids to the forest, but you can take the forest to the classrooms, to the backyards, to people's homes. And so a lot of the activities use like supplements, right, that you can find online, handouts, things that you can find in your backyard, and you use that as tools. That is also really low cost for educators. We know in some countries forest education, you can have great funding. So we use the Project Learning 3 curriculum because it allows us to provide like kind of easy access for kids to these outdoor experiences. And this is just how activities have been come along through the years. And so like this is a curriculum that keeps renovated on a yearly basis. And so when we invite our volunteers to get certified to teach forestry to our youth, and this is our, our to-go tool. The good news that I have for you all is that, again, how we start, in 4-H is just looking for volunteers. When it comes to forest education, I always hear about like, well, I'm not a forestry, like I never went to school for that. this is too complicated, my country doesn't have the culture to protect the forest, that's okay. The good thing about 4-H is that when we have volunteers, volunteers are interested for the youth. So, you know, a parent may not be willing to volunteer, but when they know that their kids' education is on the line, they will do things for them, right? So we look for professionals that love the forest, or you just look for people that love the youth and are willing to help them understand why the forest is important for them. One of the news that I have for you all in this conference is that the Project Learning Tree has already put a compilation of activities in both English and Spanish that are easy access online. And so this is some of the links that we'll be sharing in the chat lately.
Claudia,
have a group of volunteers.
Claudia,
Yeah,
just to, because we don't have a lot of more time, so I just want to send kind of a final message about what do you need to open a 4-H club. A 4-H club, you need volunteers. Volunteers that you can train, and you can train as a forestry expert. The idea is that those volunteers reach youth, and those that and transfer to the youth this passion to take care of the forest. I think that's the most important piece of the presentation that Claudia is doing. You open a 4-H club, we can help you to do that, but then, of course, you are gonna have people that would like to work with you. And I think that's the most important piece. And I'm sorry, I read in the chat that the translation to Spanish is not working, so I'm very, very, very sorry. Juan Carlos, how long do we have? How many minutes do we have left?
You don't have many.
Okay, so thank you so much, and thank you, Claudia.
Thank you, Claudia. Thank you, Lupita.
Yeah, we have the recording for another presentation in Spanish. We can share it in the chat. I'll look for it, Jose.
Okay, thank you. Ahora, pues muchas gracias a las personas que están sumando. Ya están, el tema de traducción ya está funcionando mejor. Ahora vamos a escuchar a dos personas, bueno, vamos a escuchar otras experiencias de personas que están llevando al sector forestal a otros entornos. Y por eso le pido primero su participación a René Zamora. René Zamora, quien es, coordina la parte de la iniciativa 20x20 en WRI. Entonces, René, no sé si quieres que presente tú o si quieres hacerlo tú, tu presentación, el slide.
Yo puedo ponerlo acá.
Perfecto, para que lo puedas manejar. Y ya están arreglando el servicio de traducción, entonces como te sientas, para que fluya la conversación. Gracias.
Okay, I will try English, and then if not, let me know and I can slow down. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, no, thank you very much, Jose Carlos, for the invitation. I'm very grateful to be here and to hear my colleagues, Sandra, Lupita, Claudia, and Pina that will come later. I won't take just, 6-8 minutes at the most, but would like to share with you some of the topics that I see are relevant for education in terms of landscape restoration and financing. You might think that this only applies to maybe university level, but this is a lot of levels because it's a matter of how we all get educated in this important topic that is very relevant, and it affects us in many ways. Either we work in it or we don't work in it. I think in the previous part of the session, they were talking about holistic approaches for education. I think one of the landscape restoration is basically a holistic approach. You have many land uses. We foresters focus a lot in forests because that's where, we study forests, we study trees, but when you see the problems that are around forestry are mainly probably outside forests. We have cities that are growing, we have agricultural lands that are expanding, and we are not blaming them. We all consume the agricultural products, the food that we need. We need timber, we need houses, so we need a lot of resources, but we need to balance all of these. And education has to have this balance because, we cannot just full say, we won't touch this forest or we will cut all these forests. We need to balance, we need trade-offs, and we need to understand that perspective, because otherwise we cannot reach agreements. If we have we're in the opposite sides and we just don't change our point of view, that will be very difficult. We need to understand the system as a whole. And that's why restoration is very important for education and landscape restoration. You know, that last name that is landscape is what it implies, the holistic approach. You know, and why is important, more relevant right now, is because we are starting just the UN decade on ecosystem restoration, which is it's called to restore ecosystems. When I say restoration and landscape restoration, is not restoring to the original system that was before, you know, 500, 1,000 years ago. No, we have many land uses. We need food, we need water, we need timber, we need forest. How we balance all those things so we can restore and we can still produce all the needs that the population needs and also grow. And we have two big initiatives, one in Africa, one in Latin America. There are others in other regions, but those are the starting points. 5 years ago, they started like FR100 in Africa, 20 by 20 in Latin America. They call for restoring land. The easiest way to put a politician to say restore land is hectares, you know, hectares. So what you see here is land commitments, but at the very end it's just restoring our forests, restoring our landscapes. Why we do restoration and why is relevant for education? We don't do restoration for having more trees, you know, that's very simplistic. And that's part of the education. When you are showing somebody why this is important, it's not because of just the tree to be there. It's because the carbon, it's because the jobs, the clean water, the resilience, and all these parts has to be included in the curriculum at all levels, not only at the university level, but also with kids, you know. And also when kids see a tree that is being harvested in a sustainable way, don't feel bad, you know, because that's part of the problem right now, that there are some miscommunication around how we can conserve, restore, and sustainable use our forests. And that's part of the educational part. Why? I mean, there are many ways to restore forests. And of course, foresters, we focus in reforestation and riparian restoration, but there are others, you know, we need to think about agriculture and agroforestry, silvopastures, other ways to really restore these ecosystems that are really key. What is, you know, this is my personal view, but I think what is the role in finance? Because, you know, in order to do many of the things we want to do, we need finance, you know, we need to pay for that, either by the government or private sector. And I think in the view, in education, you know, we need a lot of entrepreneurship, not just, you know, for, as I say, for universities, kids, you know, kids that understand and can see the potential, they can do their own businesses. By showing them, you know, to play like what we were seeing with 4-H program, playing with things that they can create new things. I think that's part of the thing. And also, you know, saying that the forest is not a bad thing. I mean, if you use the forest sustainably and you produce a product, it's good if you don't degrade that, of course. So that's an important thing. Knowledge about finance, you know, we always have this discussion that we need more economics, more finance, but also understanding what is the value, how we can value the biodiversity and other assets that are not valued by the markets. And of course, there are other areas that I have here, like scaling business, monitoring. You know, we have big data right now. So that's an opportunity for education, how we use this big data that we are producing to monitor our forests, but not just monitor with satellites, and how people can use that information to better use their resources. And it's not just for reporting to big conventions or other things. Focus areas that I see, you know, those are more cross-sectional, the ones that I have here. But here I have other ideas, you know, in terms of, again, financing restoration. But I think, you know, innovation is important, understanding the costs and benefits, not just the monetary costs. And that's part of the education that we need to value more than just the monetary value. And then the protect, well, climate smart forestry is a term that is being used right now. I think we need to understand better what that means, but I think we are all in climate change times. So we need to start working on that. And of course, critical thinking. And when I say critical thinking is, you know, we need to see really, when you see a news in the internet, you need to really understand the context. If you see a truck full of logs, timber, that comes from a community sustainably managing the forest, or that comes from a forest being cut and degraded. We need to understand the context. We see the picture and then we start saying, you know, this is a bad thing. But what is behind? How this forest is being used? That's important questions for education. Priorities, again, just to close: entrepreneurship, social landscapes, monitoring, diversity, equity, and inclusion, I think, are important components to include, not because they are the moment, but I think that's important part of the curriculum that we need to have more women, more minority groups. I come from Guatemala. We need more diversity. We need more of that in the programs. And just to add and say thank you, Jose Carlos, again, and the team at Reforestamos for the invitation, and happy to follow the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you to you, Rene. Thank you for sharing your ideas related with the role of foresters in this to these challenges. So, well, thank you. And if you have questions for the speakers, please, you can write in the chat, and then we will ask them. So now I'm going to introduce you to Pina Gervasi, Pina Gervasi from FSC. So please go ahead, Pina. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jose Carlos. Yes, can you please put my presentation in screen?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Give me 1 second. Ready.
Thank you very much. Yes, my name is Pina Gervasi. I'm currently the Climate Director of the Forest Stewardship Council, FSC. FSC is nowadays the widest used forest certification system to demonstrate responsible forest management. I am Peruvian. I am a forester from the Peruvian Agrarian University, La Molina. And I would like to talk to you today about the importance of understanding the value of forests beyond timber and fiber, and how we in FSC, we have developed a system to increase the value of forests, and also to make parts of the society, such as the corporate sector, become real players on providing financial benefits to forest management operations. The next one, please. First of all, as you know, we are in a climate crisis. This is a picture of a glacier in Alaska from 1994 and the changes in 2004. Of course, global warming, but climate crisis is not just about environmental issues. Next one, please. It's also about social issues, and we have seen in the past years the rise of climate refugees and people having to leave cities and countryside because of climate disasters related events. The next one. And also we see the emergence of young voices to demonstrate and to talk to governments, to companies, and in general to the civil society about the importance of stopping global warming and fighting against climate change. The next one, please. But we also need to understand that the climate crisis has different dimensions, and there is a need to balance the creation of a safe and just space for humanity, but at the same time, develop a regenerative and distributive economy. And this is a big challenge that all society needs to face. And in this graph, you will see many sectors connected to different climate-related problems. Of course, education is a key sector on addressing climate change, and I will talk a little bit more about that. But also the need to conserve and restore all the ecosystem services that forests provide, and that are needed also to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and to balance the atmosphere. The next one, please. So, well, you may know the importance of forests in the climate crisis. It is calculated that more than 20% of global greenhouse gas emissions are caused by forest degradation and deforestation. Avoiding forestation and forest degradation is a cost-effective measure against climate change, so it is to invest on sustainable forest management, conservation, and restoration. Forests retain around 2 billion tons of CO2 per year, and in the tropics, this is higher. And for that, ecosystems restoration is key. The next one, please. So it's time to build a bridge between these different sectors and actors that contribute to fight against climate change. And today I will talk more about what we do with the corporate sector in order to build this bridge with forest operations and to develop a financial model that can actually provide revenues to local communities and forest managers. But first of all, yeah, the next one, please. Of course, education and the scientific sector has a huge role to play here, because we can say that climate change is a global problem, a large-scale problem that connects to government decisions, legal frameworks, large-scale financial support to developing countries to address climate change adaptation and mitigation, and of course, industry and corporate commitments to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions. But we understand that environmental education enables people to be part of the solution, changing attitudes and behaviors. The next one, please. So for us, it is important that environmental education considers the value of forests in a broader sense and at all levels, from young people to curricula at universities to postgraduate studies. We receive more and more a huge demand and interest on knowing more on how ecosystem services can be valued and how we can communicate this to civil society. Next one, please. So why do we have to care about ecosystem services? Because we all depend on them. I mean, water comes from forests in many, in many countries, such as my country. And we care about this, not only as individuals, but also businesses. But often this has no cost. We use them without cost. Another reason is that developing the land into a use that is a non-forest use that most of the times is not sustainable. It's a more attractive economic alternative than maintaining that forest, and we need to change that. So new incentives are needed for forest managers to protect the forest, and for companies also and people to value those forests and to pay for that value. The next one, please. So that's why we created the FSC Ecosystem Services Procedure. As you can imagine, we are a certification scheme that is built upon a global standard for responsible forest management. That standard is applied on the ground and verified through a third-party auditing process. So this procedure is an add-on to our normal certification in forest management operations. And I will talk a little bit more about that. The next one, please. So the procedure is built on the theory of change that, of course, it's quite known and respected in the scientific and in the scientific world. And it considers 5 ecosystem services that are crucial and key, not only for forest conservation, but also for the life of the people depending on those. That's biodiversity conservation, carbon sequestration and storage, watershed services, soil conservation, and recreational services. The next one, please. And why do we do this? Because we understand the importance of conserving and restoring those ecosystem services, but there is also a huge and increasing number of corporate commitments in order to maintain and restore those services. One is that there are many more corporate sustainability policies that want to deliver forest conservation and specific measures to target biodiversity conservation and, of course, carbon storage and reduction of greenhouse gases. The other one is that there is a global concern about deforestation and big also corporate and government commitments to deliver actions to avoid deforestation. An example of this is the Consumer Goods Forum, where almost all multinationals, corporate multinationals around the world are committed to not source from areas that have been deforested or rainforests that have been depleted. And also, of course, governments, through their nationally determined contributions, are committing on forest restoration on degraded and deforested lands. The next one, please. And these are some of the global initiatives that aim to support companies to report on these commitments. So nowadays, it is important not only to talk about what companies do or what the industry does, but also to deliver measures that can demonstrate that they're actually doing so. One of it is the Global Reporting Initiative. It's one of the reporting initiatives mostly used by the corporate sector to demonstrate positive impacts on the environment, including climate change, forests, water, etc., biodiversity. The Supply Chain Initiative, that it's also a corporate platform where companies are committed to zero deforestation. We have a project now working together with the gold standard, that is one of the carbon certification standards, also mostly used in the world, connected to this, the accountability framework, Forest 500, and many others. The next one, please. So the ecosystem services implementation allows companies and forest managers to deliver claims, is how we call those messages that are directed to the market, that demonstrates positive impacts on those ecosystem services. And the value of this is that even the FSC standard is a performance standard for good forest management. The ecosystem services procedure adds another layer where those impacts that are predefined by the forest manager are verified and audited on the ground. So all the claims are actually referring to impacts that have been verified and are audited annually, and this is communicated to the market. So there are two models here in the ways that we work on this. One is that there are sponsors, companies that are committed to forest conservation, or they supply forest-related products, not only timber products, non-timber forest products, but also commit to conserve ecosystem services, to sponsor and provide financial support to the forest managers that can deliver those impacts and those impact claims. The second model is that the forest manager can actually deliver those claims in conjunction with a timber product, a timber-based product, such as utensils, flooring, or any tangible, let's say, timber product. So that product, when it goes to the market, demonstrates and communicates that it has come from an area where verified positive impacts, for example, on jaguar population increase have been demonstrated over time. The next one, please. And this is just to show you some of the actual initiatives where we are demonstrating verified impacts on biodiversity. Many of them in Latin America. There is a very nice case in the Peruvian Amazon, in the region of Madre de Dios, where there is a certified FSC concession. And it has demonstrated through different studies that jaguar population is being conserved as much and even in higher rates than in adjacent conservation areas that belong to the government. So these are very nice examples. These companies are actually now working with investors, banks, and other companies committed to forest conservation that are sponsoring currently their operations. The next one, please. And this is just an example of a company that is working with us. That is ISA Energy, one of the biggest companies of energy in Latin America, that has this program called the Jaguar Connection. So they are sponsoring currently projects that are FSC certified and can demonstrate verified impacts on biodiversity and carbon. Next one. And this is all. Thank you very much. And I'm available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pina. It was a really interesting presentation related with the new topics that foresters we need to know, and also the forest education need to include. So So please, Rene, Claudia, and Pina, could you share your contact information in the chat, because there are a lot of people asking for your emails, and they would like to contact you for some activities, and they want to ask some questions. So if you have a question related with the presentations or with this topic, expanding the scope of forestry education, forest education, please you can write in the chat. But also, well, I have many questions, because, well, Pina, Rene, Claudia, you are how can I say, you are working with people from other sectors. There are not foresters. They don't know what is the importance of forests. And many times they think that only forests captured carbon and that's all, and they produce oxygen. So what is your experience when some people understand what is the real importance of the forest? Rene,
Pina, I can start, and I can say that from our experience, most of the big changes have come from very, very high level decisions, including government decisions and real commitments related, for example, to the Paris Agreement and the Bond Challenge, and 20 by 20, it's an example of that. But we see over time that the issue and concern on climate change, the relation with forests, is becoming a citizen issue. It's not just a government or corporate issue. And this is making companies that are committed to their consumers to become more responsible and aware of that. And this is why we see the emergence of more commitments with companies that have never been related or even use forest products, but companies that really need to demonstrate that they are doing something about forest conservation and restoration. So I would say this is a mix between high-level decision-making, governments, the corporate sector, but also civil society, young people, the youth, raising their voice, and also making that link or that gap a bit shorter, I would say.
Well, to build bridges. So, wow, that's really interesting and necessary. Okay, thank you. No, I don't know, Claudia or Rene, you have a thought?
Yeah, just to, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead, Rene.
Yeah, no, go ahead, Claudia. I can do last, so I
okay.
Learn from what you said.
Well, I just think that I want to share is that usually my experience coming is that educators are afraid to talk about the forest because the science behind it, but then foresters are afraid to connect to educators to learn the how, right? So I think that bridge that Pina is mentioning is just for me going to a forester and say hey, kids are interested in this and I really don't know how to talk about this. I have no clue why the leaves are turning down. I don't understand all the species that are here, or I don't understand why, reforestation or wildfires. Can you help me understand, right? And when they explain it to me as a scientist, then it's just how can we come up with a story to share that with the youth, right? And so I think just both foresters being open and patient with us, and then for our educators, don't be afraid to ask them for what they have to do. So.
Okay, very interesting, Claudia. Please, Rene.
Yeah, no, just to add a bit of what already my colleagues have said, but I think I see, we tend as humans to work in silos, no? We working, like if you're a forester, you don't work in agriculture. If you're an agronomist, you don't work in forest. And the same is in education. So if you are a biologist, you sort of working with the same trees, but the foresters different. So I think we need to start working more together, because outside, when you see how things are done, I think there are more ways to, meaning we work together, we work more together, not just opposite. By working together in across disciplines, we will achieve the targets more faster than just, trying to fight between disciplines. That's one thing. And in terms of trees, it's the same, some people think, trees are like national parks and things like that, but then they have a house that is done from timber. So there has to be an understanding of where the products that you use every day come from, and what is the role of forest beyond the forest itself, but it's what is the service of the forest to society, which many people live with that every day, but they don't really see what they have been using. So thanks.
Okay, really important. Well, Rene, you talk about the new skills that foresters need to include or need to learn, but also I have a question for all of you. So what skills do foresters or people who work in forest need to develop to build these bridges with other sectors across the other sectors? Because it's not easy, because many times scientists or foresters speaks with these professional languages or complicated sometimes as an example, but maybe you have other recommendations or other observations, because it's important to create this to connect these different sectors.
I can start, and I fully agree. I was just going to say something very similar, that I think that as foresters, I am a forester as well, we need to be more open to build a common language, just to depart from our very technical and science-based ways of communicating, and instead of developing different communication strategies from different target groups, let's try to find a common language, something that people can understand easily. And then we can go into the details with all the technicalities and the scientific work. But let's build a common language. And this is also about attitude, not only about communication skills per se, I think.
Yes, attitude. Thank you. Claudia, please.
I think again, I work predominantly with elementary, middle school, and high school, like everything before college. And I think just keep it hands-on. What I have found that there is even with people that are going, to get their bachelor's as foresters, it's just they often lack the technical skills, like how to use the tools, the measurements, all the instruments. And that's something that the younger youth is super interested, right? And so I think it's usually we led with lecturing, especially in early stages. And it's don't lecture, let's just bring your tools. Let's take a walk. And even if the kid doesn't take the right measure, he's going to have the idea, right? That these are some important things that we're taking care of, and that's what we're measuring. So later on, when they are in college, they understand the science behind it. And so I think just kind of that, keep it in hands-on, and then just kind of really do the work, right? Because even with older students, it's hard to learn how to use all those observation skills, the reporting, the managing the data. And little kids are great doing that. You can take them out and say, let's count, do they look great? Do they look closer or farther away? And then I think that experience will spark curiosity that will lead the youth later to pursue a career.
Well, we can learn from the kids. Yes, a lot of things. Thank you so much, Claudia.
Yeah.
Well,
and I may
yes.
and I may say something on that. Yeah, technology, use of technology is critical now, and finding the ways that we can connect through technology to younger people. And yeah, definitely.
Yes, thank you. Rene?
Yeah, no, I think the communication piece that you mentioned is very important in different ways. One is that if you see, you know, when you meet a farmer that is all, the first thing he said probably, or she said is, I have kids and I don't want my kids to work in the land because it's too much, you know, there is a lot of work to do. And then you have all these beautiful careers on agriculture, forestry that are there. But then that might be not a good incentive for young people to go into those at the technical and university level. So I would say, like, yeah, we need to change that narrative because, you know, and part of the changing that narrative is trying to make that happen, that change happen, no? So with technology, as many have said here, but also with new businesses that can really prove that working in forests in close to the ground, it's a successful career. It's almost like creating a software in Silicon Valley, and I think that there are some opportunities there that we can change. Of course, you know, there are some economics of scale that we need to work with, but that's, I think, something we need to work as foresters in different areas.
Yeah, really. Also, my father, even he doesn't understand what is a forester, and he doesn't know what I'm doing. So well, I know it's a problem. So okay, well, if somebody from the audience could want to share a comment, maybe he can, maybe you can write your, you can open your microphone, or you can raise your hand. We want to listen your insights after this presentation. So maybe I am watching who is raising their hands, or somebody, or maybe in the chat. So please go ahead. Okay, Prosper, yes, please. I don't know if this is Prosper, the correct pronunciation, but okay, I can't. Okay, you can now. You can.
Prosper is from Ghana.
Prosper is from Ghana. Nice to meet you.
Yes, good afternoon to you all.
Yes,
I have enjoyed the presentation, especially from Dr. Pina Gavazi. And Ghana, currently we have, God has endowed it with one of the amazing forest reserve called ITTO Forest. And currently, ITTO Forest is being destroyed at an accelerating rate by illegal mining activities, felling of timber activities, and destroying of the existing biodiversity. This is influenced by the support of politicians given to these people who are encroaching these national reserves. Thus, if we don't take care, Ghana will not have a future forest for the next generation to come.
Yes.
Dr. Pina and the others, what can you do to influence Ghanaian politicians to kind of change the attitude and destruction rate that we are rendering to our existing forest? This is my concern. We need to approach it differently. So what can you do to help Ghana to save our forest?
Okay, thank you, Prosper. Pina, yes, please.
I can start. Well, from FSC International, we have just updated our global strategy until 2026, and the importance of government advocacy, in particular in tropical countries, is highlighted there, and the roles of forests and climate change and ecosystem services, not only in the timber, let's say, connected industry. So we have a regional office in Africa. It's in Namibia, and we are now also in our prioritization stage. We want to work closer with the partners of African 100, that it's the same as Initiative 20 by 20 in Latin America, in Africa, that has opened us a lot of doors to talk to governments and to discuss with them, and other NGOs and the civil society and project developers. So we expect that through these platforms and our engagement as a certification standard, we are present in Africa, of course, in many countries, we can make a difference. And relation to Ghana, the government of Ghana has a public commitment to get all concessions FSC certified in the coming years. So we have a strong work in Ghana currently.
Thank you, Pina. Now we are going to hear other questions or comments. Thank you, Prosper, for your question. Benson Najibi, let me reactivar I have problem. Yeah, go ahead, Benson.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you, moderator. My question is particularly to Pina and Claudia. We know forestry issues, like they have been talking about it, the concerns, the awareness, the need for conservation, and the rest of them. One of the major problems of forests, like we all know, is population increase. The global rising population is a major problem to forestry and conservation. I want to know if there is anything the organizations are doing with respect to a kind of education, especially with the youth and then people with respect to population increase. If we don't bring population issues into perspective with respect to forest management and conservation, the chances is that we leave it open for crisis. So I just want to know what the organizations are doing, what they are telling the youth, how are they trying to factor in the population crisis into conservation projects that they are doing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Benson. Pina, please.
Yes, I can. We have not been really active on the topic of urban forests, but we acknowledge the importance of working on this topic. And some of the organizations that work together with us, such as the Nature Conservancy and WWF, have started to have big projects on urban forests, where the goal is to make people living in these cities having forest ecosystems that can actually also be restored, and developing a best, let's say, ecosystem that has to live, of course, with the influence with the human influence. But I believe that urban forests is one of the key topics that is coming for the future, the way that we can make cities more sustainable and connect them to forests as well.
Okay,
Claudia.
And I think, thank you. I think for us, so we recognize that there is not enough people in higher education talking about forestry. So with youth, you know, as Lupita was mentioning, our main approach is forming those groups and then training volunteers to really talk about forest issues, right? So we do that through a certification that can be in person, online, and it's a total of 6 hours of training just for like anybody who want to do education about, particularly about trees, you know, because we start with the little ones, just like, let's understand the cycle of a tree, the environment, why they're important for the ecosystem. For older people, we have what we call the California Naturalist Program, and that's a more intensive like course when we certified people from the public as educators in behalf of the university. So they go through 80 hours of training, but that's just like, you know, a course that we offer in a yearly basis in partnership with nonprofits. And that's because we recognize that there is not enough people talking about the issues. So we believe that if we provide education to people that are interested, they in turn can go back to the public. And so these naturalists work at parks as volunteers or in farmer markets, you know, like fairs in the community, festivals, and they represent the university as volunteers just talking about these issues with the community.
Thank you, Claudia. Last comment, last question, Richard, because we have only 1 minute left. So, Richard, go ahead.
Merci beaucoup, Carlos, de la parole nous accordée depuis la République démocratique du Congo. J'ai beaucoup apprécié l'approche globalisante d'intégrer les matières relatives aux forêts dans d'autres secteurs. Mais face à la pression, notamment ce qui se passe en RDC, dans la zone la pression des entreprises minières, on voit que c'est une évidence. Mais il y a sont en train d'être faites pour éduquer la population. Mais les moyens manquent pour essayer de trouver des activités résilientes pour éviter que l'on puisse vandaliser, l'on puisse mener des activités qui font pression davantage sur la forêt. Quels sont les programmes qui sont prévus pour faire face à ça, surtout pour ce qui est de la foresterie urbaine?
Okay, thank you, Richard, for your comment. We don't have more time because we are on time. So, well, but we have a lot of challenges, and we, for that reason, we need to expand the forestry scope. So, well, tomorrow we will have the second part of this session, and we are going to talk about the data forest and other experience, including technology and other topics. And the last, please, Eleazar, la siguiente, la de la guía. And I would like to share our this tool. It's a guide from the forest entrepreneurship, and now it's only available in Spanish, but in next month will be available in English and also in French and other languages, because we know that foresters, they need to learn new, they need to develop new skills. So thank you so much, Pina. Thank you, Claudia. Thank you, everybody. See you tomorrow because we are on time. So Khalil and the
Thank you.